Good morning, everyone. It is May 18th, 2019. I'm Eric. 9/11. New information has come to the surface regarding the role of the dancing Israelis in the 9/11 attacks. And this video may end up getting pulled down by YouTube, but I assure you it will be over on BitChute. Hopefully they don't ban my channel as a result of this video. But I'm here at Blacklisted News, and we're going to get into the dancing Israelis and their possible role in the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Centers. Let's get into it. Newly released FBI doc shed light on apparent Mossad foreknowledge of 9/11 attacks. This comes from Mint Press. For nearly 2 decades, one of the most overlooked and little-known arrests made in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks was that of the so-called high-fivers or dancing Israelis. However, new information released by the FBI on May 7th has brought fresh scrutiny to the possibility that the dancing Israelis, at least 2 of whom were known Mossad operatives, had prior knowledge of the attacks on the World Trade Center. I would have to argue that probably they had a lot more to do with it than just prior knowledge. I mean, do we not remember the attack on our naval vessel by Israel? You know, to pull us into a conflict? Shortly after 8:46 a.m. on the day of the attacks, just minutes after the first plane struck the World Trade Center, 5 men, later revealed to be Israeli nationals, had positioned themselves in the parking lot of the Doric apartment complex in Union City, New Jersey, where they were seen taking pictures and filming the attacks while celebrating the destruction of the towers and high-fiving each other. At least one eyewitness interviewed by the FBI had seen the Israelis' van in the parking lot as early as 8 a.m. that day, more than 40 minutes prior to the attacks. The story received coverage in U.S. mainstream media at the time, but has since been largely forgotten. Okay, so they have some Jew names, and I can only pronounce the first 2. Maybe the first names of some of the others, but I'm not even going to bother. I'm going to call them the dancing Israelis. Okay? The dancing Israelis were subsequently apprehended by law enforcement and claimed to be Israeli tourists on a working holiday in the United States, where they were employed by a moving company, Urban Moving Systems. Upon his arrest, Savin Kurtzberg told the arresting officer, "We are Israeli, and we are not your problem. Your problems are our problems. The Palestinians are the problem." This sounds pretty guilty to me. I mean, it's basically an attempt to take scrutiny off themselves and put it on the Palestinians, who had absolutely nothing to do with the attack, just like Saddam Hussein had absolutely nothing to do with the attack. Nor did he have any weapons of mass destruction. So there's that. If the Israelis had nothing to do with the 9/11 attacks, then why were they celebrating? I'm just saying. I'm just asking questions here, you know. For years, the official story has been that these individuals, while they had engaged in immature behavior by celebrating and being visibly happy in their documentation of the attacks, had no prior knowledge of the attacks. However, newly released FBI copies of photos taken by the 5 Israelis strongly suggest that these individuals had prior knowledge of the attacks on the World Trade Center. The copies of the photos were obtained via a FOIA request by a private citizen. And there's where they're shooting from. Yep. The high-quality photo on top shows the area the dancing Israelis were staged. Credit Panamanza or some shit like that. According to a former high-ranking American intelligence official who spoke to the Jewish Daily Forward in 2002, the FBI concluded in its investigation that the 5 Israelis arrested were conducting a Mossad surveillance mission and that their employer, Urban Moving Systems of Weehawken, New Jersey, served as a front. At least 2 of the men arrested were determined to have direct links to the Mossad after their names appeared in a CIA-FBI database of foreign intelligence operatives. According to one of their lawyers, one of the men, Paul Kurzberg, had previously worked for the Mossad in another country prior to arriving in the United States. Another of those arrested, Aded Eliner, I'm not sure, but that's close enough, subsequently stated on Israeli TV that the 5 Israelis had been in New York at the time to document the event, meaning the attack on the World Trade Center. The FOIA requests, or the FOIA release of the photos, is notable because responses to prior FOIA requests to the Department of Justice, which oversees the FBI, had previously claimed that all of the photos taken by the Israeli nationals had been destroyed in January of 2014. What? The photos themselves are heavily redacted, making it impossible to see the Israelis' facial expressions. However, previously declassified yet heavily redacted FBI reports state that the Israelis are visibly happy in nearly every photo, even when the burning towers are in the background. The photos released are also not original copies and instead appear to be photocopies of the original pictures. In addition of the original 76 pictures developed by authorities from camera in the Israelis' possession, only 14 were released. I wonder why that is. I wonder why they only released 14 of those photos. Could it be that it showed their complicity in the entire thing? Could it be? And this is the FOIA request. It's too small. I'm not going to even try to read that. However, 3 of these photos, despite the heavy redaction and poor quality, are damning since 2001, even though, I'm sorry, let me start that one over. However, 3 of these photos, despite the heavy redaction and poor quality, are damning. Since 2001, even though the photos were never released until now, had been known that one of the Israelis arrested, Savan Kurzberg, was seen in a photo holding a lighted lighter in the foreground, with the smoldering wreckage of the Twin Towers in the background. according to Stephen Noah Gordon, then lawyer of the five Israelis, as cited in a New York Times report from November 2001. I mean, it seems like these guys had an awful lot to do with what was happening. Doesn't it? I mean, doesn't it look that way? Doesn't it look like that maybe the Project for a New American Century and AIPAC and a couple of other big guys up there got together and, months in advance and pre-planned everything? And, there's that lady, too, that swears she saw telecommunication workers with wires and all kinds of other stuff. Yeah, it just seems like, that probably they work together to have this happen so they can, overthrow them governments that General Wesley Clark referred to in his interview. Could that be? Could that be the thing, the deal? It could be, huh? The picture of Kurtzberg with the lit lighter appears to be photo number 5 in the new FOIA release. Yet the picture released includes a visible date of September 10th, 2001, the day before the attacks, as do 2 other photos, images 1 and 8 in the collection, whereas all other photos with dates show only the month and the year, 901. The FOIA release did not provide any information as to the apparent discrepancy in dates. While this could be explained away as the camera in question being programmed with a slightly inaccurate date, that does not seem to be the case for 2 reasons. First, only 2 out of the 14 pictures carry that date, and second, previously declassified FBI reports report an eyewitness adamantly stating that Savan Kurtzberg had visited the Doric Apartments on September 10th, 2001, around 3 p.m. with at least one other man, with whom he was conversing in a foreign language, and had identified himself as a construction worker to a tenant. Yeah, there he is holding the lighter. Come on. Are you going to tell me with a straight face, all you Israeli supporters out there, that they had nothing to do with it? Really? Really? Okay, so Savan Kurtzberg holds a lit lighter with the Manhattan skyline in the background. The date September 10th, 2001. Visible in the bottom right corner of photo 5. Right there. Right there. In addition, the FBI report noted that a van from Urban Moving Systems, the company that employed the 5 Israelis at the time of their arrest, was present and was involved in moving a tenant out of the complex on September 10th, and that the movers all had foreign accents. Thus, image 5, 7, and 8 strongly appear to have been taken at the same complex a day before the attacks. Kurtzberg is seen in both images that display the visible date of September 10th, 2001. This raises 2 possibilities. First, that there are 2 images of Kurtzberg with a lit lighter in front of the towers, one taken before the attack and one taken at the time of the attack, and that the FBI released only one of them. Second, that Kurtzberg took the picture with the lighter only the day before the attacks, and his lawyer misrepresented the contents of the photo to the New York Times. Given that the background of the photos, particularly the state of the towers, is indiscernible in the recent released photo, it is difficult to determine which is the case. One of the Israelis points to what is presumably the World Trade Center in Manhattan on September 11, 2001, photo 2. Yet, in either scenario, Kurtzberg has simulated the burning of the World Trade Center the day before the attacks took place. And by the way, if the Israelis had nothing to do with it, why would he do that? I mean, the behavior of these people, let's just put it this way. If I were myself and a group of people I know were celebrating, the conclusion would be we had something to do with it. Man. And we're friends with these people. With friends like this, who needs enemies? I'm trying to figure out where I left off here. Okay, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and... Yet in either scenario, Kurtzberg had simulated the burning of the World Trade Centers the day before the attacks took place. That the FBI concluded that Kurtzberg was party to a Mossad surveillance operation at the time of his arrest would then suggest that Israeli intelligence also had foreknowledge of the attacks. Let me stop right there for a moment. And also, the whole thing stinks. And the reason is, I think they're simply saying that, yeah, they had foreknowledge to kind of divert our attention from their actual role in the attacks. Notably, the relevant section of the FBI report that asked, 1. Did the Israeli nationals have foreknowledge of the events at WTC, and were they filming the events prior to and in anticipation of the explosion? Is redacted in its entirety suggests that the FBI did not determine the answer to that question to be a no, and they did. One of the 9/11 loose ends cover-ups. If images 5 and 7 were indeed taken the day prior to the attack, the question then becomes why the FBI officially concluded that the arrested Israelis had no prior knowledge of the attacks. One report from ABC News dated June 2002 suggests that the Bush administration intervened in the investigation. Yep. Showing guilt, too. The report states that the Israeli and U.S. government officials worked out a deal, and after 71 days, the 5 Israelis were taken out of jail, put on a plane, and deported back home to Israel. If the Bush administration had cut a deal with Israeli government to cover up the incident, it certainly would not have been the first time a U.S. presidential administration had done so on Israel's behalf. You might recall that attack I was referring to on a naval vessel. Further evidence that higher-ups in the administration intervened is the fact that then Attorney General John Ashcroft personally signed off on the detainee's release. Upon his entering the private sector as a lobbyist and consultant in 2005, the Israeli government became one of Ashcroft's first clients. How convenient. A cover-up certainly seems to have happened to some extent. Between the destruction of records of the investigation and the fact that official conclusions of the investigations do not add up. In the latter case, the FBI, in a file dated September 24, 2001, officially stated that they determined that none of the Israelis were actively engaged in clandestine intelligence activities in the United States. Right. However, that conclusion was directly contradicted by U.S. officials a year later, and by the fact that the Israelis' own government subsequently acknowledged that the 5 Israelis had indeed been involved in clandestine intelligence activities in the United States. In addition, the new FOIA release of the photo suggests that another FBI conclusion that none of the pictures developed from the film found inside the 35mm camera depicted the Twin Towers prior to the attack was inaccurate. This may explain why the images released via the recent FOIA request were heavily edited, leaving details in the background greatly obscured, making it impossible to determine whether the photos were taken prior to or during the attacks based solely on the state of the towers. Tourists with cash-stuffed socks, box cutters, and explosives. Beyond the photos and observed activities of the dancing Israelis, it is worth revisiting several other suspicious circumstances linked to their arrest that clearly show that the men in question were hardly the tourists they had claimed to be. One often cited example is the fact that one of the men, Auden Liner, had a white sock-like sack filled with $4,700 in cash, as well as maps of the city with certain places highlighted and box cutters. In addition, the van in which the Israelis were arrested was oddly lacking equipment typically used in a moving company's daily duties, according to the FBI, and residue of explosives was found in the van. And people believe of the explosive residue, the declassified FBI report states, a search of the van and individuals was conducted at the time of the vehicle stop. The vehicle was also searched by a trained bomb-sniffing dog, which yielded a positive result for the presence of explosive traces. Swabs of the vehicle's interior were taken, and those samples were sent to the FBI laboratory for further analysis. Final results are still pending. In total, the FBI reported that 4 items related to explosives were found in the van and are labeled in the report as fabric sample or explosive residue, control swab, gloves, control swabs, bomb suits, and blanket samples for explosive residue, In addition, a VHS tape and some still photography found in the van were sent to laboratory examiner redacted explosives unit. Can anybody tell me if they had nothing to do with it? I mean, directly to do with it. Why would their van have explosive residue in it? Why? And the whole thing stinks. The whole thing. This article is very, very lengthy. So I'm going to stop it right there and leave the link in the description box below. But you can't say with a straight face these people had nothing to do with 9/11. And I mean direct, hands-on participation. But I'm the conspiracy theorist, right? I'm the one that should be scrutinized for what I'm saying. I'm the one who's anti-Semitic, right? Anyway, I thought I would share this with you because it's utterly disgusting that we're still allies with Israel, given our history with them, and I would like to see that end. But then again, I would like to see the entire thing end. Till next time, kill the state before the state kills you.